Near Youngstown has announced he's running for the U.S. Senate seat, now held by Republican Rob Portman, who is not running for re-election next year. Several Republicans have already announced their candidacy. I'm Dave James on the Ohio News Network.
Calls and conversations continue in less than 3 minutes as the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues after this.
Oh, there's something so real about living local. And I know without a doubt I'm not alone. And I'm loving living local. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Said I'm loving living local. WTRF is working for me. The Ohio Valley is where I love to be.
Now, during the Jim Robinson Ford Lincoln Toyota Pre-Owned Super Sale, select from over 80 vehicles in stock starting under $5,000. Most are local trades, many with one owner. Hurry to Jim Robinson at the Highlands, home of lifetime powertrain protection. Now, during the Jim Robinson Ford Lincoln Toyota Pre-Owned Super Sale, select from over 80 vehicles in stock starting under $5,000. Most are local trades, many with one owner. Hurry to Jim Robinson at the Highlands, home of lifetime powertrain protection.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
Does your company's website work for you? Is it helping attract new clients and improving your brand awareness? If not, or you don't know, contact the team at Omni Strategic Technologies. With expert web developers, they build amazing web experiences that help their clients perform better. Contact Omni at 304-242-7600 or visit them at www.omniperforms.com.
Hello everyone, from the Watchdog, I'm the Storm Tracker Darnell Foster with a look at your local weather forecast for your Tuesday. Mostly sunny skies, a daytime high near 81, overnight low of 50 degrees under partly cloudy skies, clouds and sunshine mixing for your Wednesday with highs in the lower 80s. Have yourself a great day everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
News, information, conversation, controversy, and fun. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
Boy, the temperature's just moving up nicely. We started out in the 30s a couple of days this week, right, Beth? Monday, Tuesday.
Yes, we did.
Or late last week. We've been, but we started out at 53. We're up to 57 already, 57 degrees. at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. Clear skies, 57 here at my home studios in Elm Grove, where the sun is just beaming through the windows. Gorgeous day outside. It is going to be actually hot today, not just a nice warm spring-like day, but a hot summer-like day with temperatures up to around 80, and the sun is going to be beaming down all day long. I love the feel of that. 8:10 in the morning here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Coming up, we're going to be talking about the Ohio County School Board, which has cut their funding of the public library by a third. And what's that going to mean for the library? We'll kind of take a little preview of that today, get in depth a little bit more later on this week. West Virginia and Ohio both are going to lose a congressional seat when census redistricting numbers are finalized. One of the topics I'll get into with Tom Squitieri, our national correspondent, in just a minute. In COVID conversation, kids could get savings bonds and vaccines will be available at the state basketball tournament, as concern grows over the number of people who are not getting their shot. Chuck Collins was heir to the Oscar Mayer family fortune. He gave it away, and instead is now a critic of the uber wealthy. He's got a new book that is out called The Wealth Hoarders, and in his new book, he is talking about the wealth defense industry. Chuck Collins will join us coming up later on this morning as well. Biff, we've got basketball tonight, right?
Yes, we do. We have at 7 o'clock Trinity taking on Wheeling Central, and the winner of that game will go to Charleston next week, and the loser will get out the baseball bats.
So that's tonight, 7 o'clock on the Watchdog. You can listen on air. You can also listen on TuneIn Radio. Don't forget, if you're out of the immediate range of the radio station, our lower power at night, you can listen to us on TuneIn Radio, also on our streaming audio, which is at watchdognetwork.com. Easy ways to listen to us if you would like to. Then we also have we have a girls' tournament game coming up this week as well, right?
Yes, it'll be Thursday night at 9 o'clock. It'll be the last game of the day on Thursday. That is Morgantown and Wheeling Park, and they will be meeting for the fourth time this year.
Wow.
And then
how's that gone so far?
I think Park is 1-2 against Morgantown.
All right, so that will be on Thursday here on the Watchdog as well, and then hopefully the Park girls will be moving along, and we'll follow that tournament for you, tournament action as well here on the Watchdog. So those are a few of the things coming up tonight, and then Thursday for high school basketball here on the Watchdog. It's 8:12. Time to talk to our national correspondent Tom Squitieri. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, good morning. I was just thinking of what you guys were talking about. Man, facing the same team 4 times in 1 year is always a challenge because, both teams know each other pretty well by now, I think, and makes it potentially for an exciting game.
Well, we hope it will be an exciting game, and of course we hope that the Wheeling Park girls will win it.
Well, of course.
I have no problems with being a homer on these kind of things, so hopefully it'll work out. Hey, Tom, census numbers are out. Looks like going to be some redrawing of the congressional districts, I guess, all across the country. But our two states, Ohio and West Virginia, both are going to lose a congressional seat.
And Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's.
I was a little surprised at West Virginia losing one, not suddenly, but just a little bit. I thought, because overall the population increases in the United States have been low. I think it's the lowest population increase since the Depression, measured in a decade cycle. And so I was a little surprised because I thought West Virginia's population had been somewhat stable, but again, stability in the population is not guaranteed to keep all your seats because of increases in shifts. For example, Montana is getting back a second congressional seat. They had 2 House seats for many years, and they lost one in a couple censuses ago, and now they've gotten it back as well. But Howard, this continues the pattern of the last half century. It was since the 60s when the manufacturing jobs left the North and the Midwest and moved South and West, and that took some jobs with them. And then, just a sort of general flight overall to warmer climates in the West and the South. that just has made those southern and western states more populous. I also think, however, and I wanted to double check it, and I'm sorry I didn't have enough time to do it before this, but I also saw where California lost a seat as well, and Oregon. So, these far west coast states that were gaining population because of the overall diminished increases in population actually wound up losing the seat. Now, we talked about, not to throw it on too much here, however I will, we talked about, I think last week, about the Supreme Court, how it's worth looking at the Supreme Court, whether there should be term limits. We talked about, different things of a non-biased study. Perhaps it might be time to look at, again, a non-biased study of enlarging the House of Representatives to accommodate the population growth overall in our country. Maybe, I don't know what the number would be. I have no thought. I haven't really thought about it much. But, states that keep losing seats, what happens is then in a state, particularly like in Ohio and Pennsylvania and West Virginia, where they're either large states geographically or they're states that have natural geographical barriers like the mountains in Pennsylvania and West Virginia to make, it difficult for one member of Congress to serve all that area. Now, people say, well, the western states have one or two. Yeah, but they have less population, too. So, and it's, like the Dakotas, it's flat, and so on. It's easy. Not minimizing the importance of those states. It's just, I think that, again, stepping back, maybe we should increase the number of those in the House of Representatives, just to reflect the fact that we're a much larger country now than we were when we set it at 435 members.
Yeah, that's a good point. Time to maybe just at least look at the way we apportion those seats. That's a good point. In West Virginia, we'll go from 3 to 2, which means that one of our 3 Republican congresspersons will either choose not to run for re-election, or 2 of them will have to run against each other at some point. What we don't know in West Virginia, what we don't know is which way they are likely to divide the state, east, west, or north and south. A somewhat logical solution, I think, is north and south, but there are some who think it should be done sort of, down the middle, east and west. So how that divides up, I guess, probably will determine to some extent how the current members of Congress choose to run.
I used to write about this topic, and I found it very interesting, reapportionment of House seats. I always kind of like these granular issues that no one really wanted to sink their teeth into. And this was several decades ago now, I should say, when this happened back in the 80s and the 90s. And I learned then that Iowa at the time, and again, this may have changed, but I doubt it. Iowa at the time was the only state that had a nonpartisan commission that would look at the state, look at the population shifts, as well as internal demographics. In other words, just because two cities are in 2 different counties, let's say, that doesn't mean they should be in 2 different congressional districts if that whole area is, say, a farm district or a manufacturing. In other words, that kind of demographic. And so basically when you look at Iowa's lines for their seats, they've gained and lost over the years. They're basically square districts. In other words, none of this sort of gerrymandering stuff that goes on in other states, with some exceptions. In other words, the whole city would be included to make sure the whole city and its environs are included. As I said, that seemed to be incredibly fair, and, both Democrats and Republicans praised it and complained about it. So it tells me again it's incredibly fair.
Right. If everybody's complaining, it's pretty fair. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah. So in Pennsylvania, what happened the last time? You had a couple times ago, you had a couple Democratic, because they were mostly Democratic districts that lost population in Pennsylvania. You'd have Democrats running against each other in the primary, as you were saying, what could happen in West Virginia, or they retire, or in some cases they seek higher office. So a lot of times if there's a Senate seat open in your state, let's say, maybe one of those Republicans, I don't know if it's Shelley Moore Capito or not running, but they wouldn't run against her necessarily, but say if Manchin's seat was up, that might prompt a Republican House member who normally wouldn't seek a Senate seat, well, I'm going to be redistricting out, I might as well seek. So it does have an impact on, as you said, the dynamics of politics at different levels.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to force the incumbent Republican people, because one is a woman, Congress people in West Virginia to really, it's not going to be an automatic, yes, I'm going to run again. They've got to really think about the strategy of what makes sense for them. I wouldn't be totally surprised if our Congressman, First District Congressman Dave McKinley, doesn't perhaps take another shot at running for governor, which he has done in the past, then leaving the other two Republicans for the two districts, depending on how it plays out. And then Democrats in West Virginia, we just plain don't have any bench strength. I mean, we're just reaching into the crowd trying to find somebody to run for things. And that's a problem. I have commended the the West Virginia Republican Party for the last 10, 15 years. They have really taken a long game. I mean, they worked at building up, beginning at local levels and moving into the state house, and then moving into congressional districts and Senate seats. Finding candidates and getting them name familiarity across the state. Democrats have not done that in West Virginia, so it makes it very difficult to challenge a Republican incumbent, especially because we're such a Republican state anymore. But it makes it very difficult because we don't have a lot of brand name Democrats left.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, and putting aside for the moment President Trump's influence on the Republican Party, which, is substantial, what you talk about predates President Trump. And there's another state, a neighboring state of West Virginia, we don't talk about very often, Maryland. And I remember after the 2016 election, talking to a really smart Democratic political person, and he was lamented. They did well in Maryland, the Democrats. Governor Hogan, of course, is a Republican and very popular across the lines, but the Democrats had done well in that election, but he was really nervous because of what you just said, that the Republican Party, again, pre-President Trump, in Maryland, which has not really been much of a factor, has been quietly and successfully building up bench strength and winning, county-level jobs and state house jobs, positions, that gives him the bench strength and experience and candidates to run then for congressional seats or statewide. You're absolutely right, and that it's the longer game that has to be played. And in some states, depending on the state, local parties have realized this and are succeeding.
In West Virginia, I think the Democratic Party had some stellar names for such a long period of time, at least at the federal level. I mean, from Senator Byrd, of course, Jay Rockefeller, Jennings Randolph, Alan Mullihan, his dad, Bob Mullihan, before him. These were just absolutely brand political names. And Democrats in the state just kind of rested their laurels on those guys. And as they...
Yeah, I also think it freezes, as you pointed out, Howard, it freezes the bench strength, so to speak, because, those guys are going to be there for a while. Yeah. There's no sense in me, doing this because I'm going to be 85 before they retire. I'm exaggerating, of course, but, so there could be a disincentive, as you said. We're winning these elections. We don't need to worry about winning the elections. We don't need to think about what's happening next.
But again, in West Virginia, what happened was the brand name Democrats resigned or didn't run again. Alan Mullihan was probably the last of the brand name Democrats at the federal level prior to Joe Manchin. And he was defeated in a primary. So, suddenly the game had changed. And I've long lamented the Democratic lack of strategy in this state for lack of the ability to look down the road. And again, I commend the Republican Party. 15 years ago or so, at least, they began to say, let's start. There was a time about 15 years ago where there were no Republicans running in the state. I mean, almost none. And I'm not talking about getting elected. They weren't even running. And then the Republican Party said, nope, we're going to run in every election, local, state, federal. We're going to get the people out there. We're going to build some brand name. And look where we are now. So it's amazing. Tom, before I take a break, let's stay with the census just for a second and just talk about something you mentioned at the beginning, which is that the census numbers are showing this is nationwide the slowest growth since the Great Depression. What's happened in this country?
Yeah, and remember, it's not, people will say it's COVID. No, COVID is 1 year of this. This is a 10-year look. What's happened is immigration has slowed overall, not just because of President Trump, but it just sort of has slowed to where it was more of a surge in the 60s and the 70s. The economics of the situation they're not that good economically across the country, and fewer babies are being born. That's one thing, but we're living longer, so in that sense, it adds to the population numbers. But the growth, the growth areas, new babies, that's redundant, babies, immigrants, those are the two things that really fuel growth, okay? And both of those have tailed off significantly for many different reasons. And I was startled. Now, again, there has been growth, so it's not like it was a negative downturn. Like in some European nations, you're actually seeing a kind of a downturn. But slow growth. And Howard, I know you have to take a break, but you talk about 10 years and 15-year plans, and this is one of these things that people don't think about. But 15, 30 years from now, if your population is smaller compared to a world that's growing and is better educated, et cetera, these are the compounding factors that make your country what it is. So it's a very curious thing. I'll be eager to read analysis of it later today.
Yep, it's going to be a big story for a while. Tom Scudieri is our national correspondent. We're going to continue conversation about some things happening on the national scene. One thing I want to ask you about, Tom, you can think about it during a break. What do you think Joe Biden's going to offer us in his joint address to Congress? Any thoughts on that? We'll get to that coming up in a minute. And take a look at some of the foreign and military issues coming up as well. But right now it's 8:26, 57 degrees, sunny outside, going to be 80 and sunny all day long.
I'm Big Rick, host of Real Big Talk, weekday afternoons on the Watch.
Report the call at oig.ssa.gov.
For all of your IT needs, visit omniperforms.com. Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the watchdog trusts.
This is Education Matters with Ohio Education Association President Scott DeMauro.
As high school seniors prepare to graduate and make plans for their future, we need more young people to consider a future in teaching. Ohio needs more people from all backgrounds, all races.
Visit associationsadvanceohio.com.
Are you or your loved ones facing a serious legal battle? The law office of Paul Harris wants you to know you aren't alone. Do you need someone that's not afraid to go to trial and fight for your rights? Attorney Paul Harris and his team are willing to go where most firms are not. The courtroom. With a successful track record in civil litigation, criminal defense, including tax issues and healthcare fraud, Harris Law Office will fight for their clients by offering the most aggressive representation in and out of court. Call Paul Harris at Harris Law Office for a free consultation. 304-232-5300.
Get tickets now to see the Wheeling Nailers take on the Indy Fuel Wednesday, April 28th, puck drop 7:10. Take a midweek break for hard-hitting action with the Nailers, proud affiliates of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and see players who may become future NHL stars. Experience the 29th season of pro hockey in Wheeling. Get tickets now for the Nailers game, Wednesday, April 28th at Westbanco Arena. Call 304-234-GOAL or visit WheelingNailers.com. This is Nail City.
Bellsville. The Watchdog is protecting your yard. Join Howard Monroe, Hoppy Kercheval, Bill DeFabio, and Big Rick for the best live and local talk in the Upper Ohio Valley and beyond. Bellsville trusts the Watchdog.
Watch out! He could climb on his soapbox at any time. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
Tom Squitieri is our national correspondent, joins us every Tuesday to talk about some of the matters coming out of the nation's capital and other big stories around the country. Tom, let's just do a quick rundown of a couple of the international and Pentagon-related stories that I thought we might chat about just in a quick, brief way. Looks like a summit with Putin is a possibility for President Biden, right?
That's right. Russia announced that it was considering it, would do it, and the White House was a little bit more upbeat about it. The short answer is, if it happens, both sides are looking to do it sometime this summer in a European nation to be named.
The president has been a lot less accommodating to Putin than President Trump was. So will it be a confrontational session or a conversational session?
I don't think President Biden wants a confrontational session. You know, when he called President Putin to inform him ahead of time of the actions the U.S. is going to take in retaliation to Russia's cyber attacks and election interference, is when he first proposed the summit, and the Russians sort of dismissed it then. And then they went ahead with their Ukrainian stuff and their Black Sea stuff. And what Biden did in the Black Sea was he made sure that the U.S. ships that were going to the Black Sea did not go there to avoid a confrontation of Russia. Some people are saying that's a sign of weakness, but again, going back to our conversation prior about looking at a big picture or game plan, I think Biden wants to try to establish some kind of firm, consistent relationship with Russia, neither confrontational nor condescending. And so that was a gesture. Now, we know that Russians really don't often embrace these kind of gestures in the right spirit that we want. But nevertheless, I think it's part of a larger plan by Biden to meet with Putin and sort of set the table, as you will, between the two countries and see. You know, one of the things that they may talk about is that, you know, Russia's pulling out of the International Space Station and wants to line up with China to build their own. The U.S.-Russian cooperation in space is very important, has been above the fray, so to speak. And, you know, there are areas like this where Biden, the veteran that he is of these kind of international maneuverings, may bring to the table. Just you know, people suggesting it. It's not guaranteed. I don't want your listeners to think I am spouting something that's going to be discussed.
An interesting announcement from the Department of Homeland Security yesterday. They're going to begin an internal review of the possibility of domestic violent extremism inside the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah, very interesting announcement. This follows what the Defense Department has done, of course. They have those going on and should be wrapping up. I think, Howard, the key here is look at the progression of this, defense and then Homeland Security. Remember a couple of years ago, a member of the Coast Guard, which is part of the Homeland Security Department, was found on a list of potential targets to assassinate here in the D.C. area. So there is that concern that there are people within Homeland Security that may have these right-wing or insurrectionist attitudes, whatever we're describing them now. There's and the Justice Department is likely to conduct a similar assessment, although it may not be as made as public as these. In other words, the key agencies that are there to protect us and to guard against us and to alert us are the ones that are going under this internal scrutiny. I think, it clearly is, this is an obvious statement, but it's a new day in Washington with those people who are leading those departments. We actually have a confirmed secretary of DHS now. We had for about 2 years. So, you can take these stronger steps in any area because you're the confirmed leader of that department. Just look at Merrick Garland in the Justice Department, for example. They just announced an investigation of the Louisville Police Department, after announcing one of Minneapolis. So, again, he's confirmed in there. They have an agenda, a checklist of things they want to start doing to try to right the ship, as people would say here.
And finally, I ain't nothing but a hound dog. Elvis Presley is going to go back to the German town where he lived when he was in the Army, right?
That's right. He was a private in the U.S. Army in a tank division in Germany, and they're going to erect a statue, a 6-foot statue of the king. It's going to be on a bridge where he posed for a famous photo in 1959 in uniform. Every year, this town, Bad Bergen, and the other one nearby, had held a Elvis festival, at the bridge and in the town. Now, this is the third honor to Elvis in this part of Germany. There's another statue of him in the traffic circle. And Howard, here's my favorite. At a crosswalk in one of these towns, when instead of flashing walk, it flashes photos of Elvis to share walk. Which I think is pretty cool, And who says the Germans don't have a sense of humor? This is pretty cool, So it's going to be, if the statue is complete, it's going to be unveiled in August. They're going to have the festival again. It was canceled last year because of COVID. So we ain't nothing but a hound dog, and, I'm so excited about this.
Elvis go. Now, when they put the statue up, is that going to be Fat Elvis? That'll be military Elvis.
No. It's on that 59 photo of him. So he was that slim, guy that just drove people crazy with his voice and his gyrations. I think once in a while we need good news stories like this, right, Howard?
I always like to wrap things up on a sort of fun note. So, hey, I appreciate your time this morning as always. We'll talk to you again next week. Thanks a lot, Tom. I appreciate it.
All right, bye.
All right, Tom Scudiere, our national correspondent, with us every Tuesday here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Some COVID conversations, including vaccines at the basketball tournament. That's got to be interesting. We'll talk about that coming up. Grocery store prices are rising at historic rates. I want to share that with you. And a few other odds and ends coming up in the next segment of the show. It is the Watchdog Morning Show. It's 8:35, 25 till the hour, 57 degrees, heading towards 80.
The WTRF Channel 7 News Update is brought to you.
Do I need another break, Beth? Okay, thank you.
Fans angrily on MSN, the Mountaineers Sports Network.
Oh, there's something so real about living local, and I know without a doubt I'm not alone. And I love living local. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Said I'm loving living local. WTRF is working for me. The Ohio Valley is where I love to be.
CA House Music has all the gear to make your music legendary. With all the best gear, including Fender, Epiphone, Yamaha, and more, CA House will have you rocking in no time. Get the most for your money with everyday low prices. And we meet or beat internet pricing. Play before you buy and let our product specialists help you pick out the instrument that's right for you. CA House Music, supporting local musicians since 1872. Play music for life.
Hey man, what can I get you?
Yeah, can I have 2 Coors Lights?
You got it.
Hey Mike! I need 2 Coors Lights!
Sure thing!
With a taste as cold as the Rockies, only Coors Light gives you refreshment every time. Here you go.
Thanks, Mike. Doing a great job. All right, 2 ice-cold Coors Lights.
That's the coldest beer I've ever had.
Hey, they don't call it the world's most refreshing beer for nothing.
Okay, be honest with me. Do you really have the Rocky Mountains in your beer cooler?
You don't believe it? Check it out.
Man, that's pretty amazing.
I know, right? I can't believe it myself sometimes. I mean, this cooler is only 3 feet wide.
Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. With great beer comes great responsibility.
Follow us on Facebook for the latest news, show updates, podcasts, alerts, and live video streams from the Valley's only network dedicated to local, community-driven talk radio, The Watchdog.
If you miss a part of the show or want to listen again, you can find conversations, interviews, and rants on our podcasts at Apple Podcasts or on WatchdogNetwork.com. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
For decades, a secret army of tax attorneys, accountants, and wealth managers has been developing into a shadowy wealth defense industry. They are paid millions to hide trillions for the billionaires. That's from the back page of The Wealth Hoarders, a new book by Chuck Collins. He's with us next hour here on the show. Chuck Collins is with the Institute for Public Inequality. He's got inequality.org. And he himself was part of the uber wealthy at one time. He gave up his entire Oscar Mayer family fortune. He's heir to that fortune and gave it all up. Not just the interest, the income, but the principal as well. Gave it away. And now he spends his time arguing that the uber wealthy are really not good for America and for the world. We'll talk about that coming up in the next hour of the show here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Biffy, I don't know if you do a lot of grocery shopping or not. You go to the grocery store very often? I don't. I'll be real honest with you. I just wait and see what my wife brings home. Do you do much grocery shopping?
Not really. I mean, if there's a couple things that I need to pick up, might get a few here and there, but that's usually about it.
The price at the store, price of groceries is apparently going up. Those of you who do buy the groceries and pay more attention to it than I do will probably have noticed that. The monthly consumer price index released last week by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, food prices have gone up 3.5% over the past year. That's a really significant number. The price of meat up 5.8%. Poultry up 4.4%. Fish and seafood up 5.3%. Cost of eggs up 4.7% from a year ago. The price of dairy, your milk and so on, has gone up a little under 2%, 1.6%. Fruits and vegetables, even the good stuff, going up 3%. By the way, when I say the good stuff, I mean good for you, not that I think it's good. Fruits and vegetables, 3.8% more on average than they did a year ago. Non-alcoholic beverages up 3.2%. Cereal, baker products up 2.8% from a year ago. So the cost of doing your grocery shopping has gone up significantly, and this is the biggest surge, one-year surge in the last decade. And the bad news is, I guess experts say it is likely to keep rising. Your barbecue plans could be impacted this summer. Pork products likely to be in short supply, and that's as it is now. Then as more and more restaurants reopen and people start having more social gatherings, the demand for pork will probably go up, so the prices will rise even more. I'm not quite sure why, but apparently there's a shortage of hogs. No, I'm not talking about motorcycles. No, I'm not talking about fat people like me. No, I'm talking about actual hogs. There's a shortage of hogs. And I guess that is a pandemic result, Biff. A lot of processing plants were shut down. Family farms had to shut down due to the pandemic. So the pork is going to be in shorter supply. So the pork products are going to go up. And your summer barbecue is going to be more expensive. This is not what I want to hear.
Not at all.
I don't want to hear that. A shortage on these products, says the story here from the Wall Street Journal, means the traditional deals and sales on pork products may be scarce this summer. And you know what's, now that I'm starting to talk about the price of pork and barbecue products, man, I'm thinking about a good slab of ribs.
That does sound good.
I hadn't thought about that until that does sound good. Now, here's the good news. We are going to have a shortage of beef or of pork. Prices are rising in general. You know what we now have a lot of, Biff?
What's that?
Toilet paper.
Yeah, there is that.
I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic, you couldn't get it. People were hoarding toilet paper, right? I mean, it was like gold. Oh, you got some toilet paper? I'll give you my firstborn child if I can have a couple of rolls. I mean, it was a big deal. But apparently, now that the pandemic has, we all went out of fear of not being able to wipe our butts. So we bought a lot of toilet paper in the beginning, hoarded it, and now it is now actually, we have an oversupply of toilet paper. So I would assume that means the price is going down. So if you need TP, this might be a good time to buy it. Just a couple of little consumer notes I thought you might find interesting. 8:48 it does until the hour here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Coming up today, 10:06 statewide talk line. Mr. Kirchhoff will be talking a lot about the announcements that came out from the Census Bureau yesterday. West Virginia, along with Ohio and Pennsylvania, will be losing a congressional seat. Hoppy will spend some time talking about that. Kyle Kondik, the managing editor of Sabato's Crystal Ball, will be in to talk about sort of across the country, what does this census mean and the redrawing of districts. Politically, it's going to mean, I mean, looking at the way the census is suggesting congressional districts are going to be redrawn, politically it's going to be good for the red states and bad for blue states. You will see more people moving into red states, more people in the southern and Republican states, and so their congressional representation is going to grow. Democratic representation is going to decline. Kyle Kondik from Sabato's Crystal Ball talks about that with Hoppy coming up this morning at 10:06. Then bring it down to the local level, Dr. John Deskins from the Bureau of Economic and Business Research at WVU will talk more about the impact of the redistricting and what it might mean in terms of West Virginia. Also coming up today on Statewide Talk Line, Hoppy will be we'll get a report from the state high school basketball tournament for girls. So that's coming up today, 10:06. Mr. Kercheval will be here with Statewide Talk Line, all those things and more right after we are done here this morning. So Biffy, I guess they're gonna start at the basketball tournament this year. They're gonna give out COVID-19 vaccines. Got me. It's kind of strange. The health officer and executive director of the Kanawha Charleston Health Department says that because so few, I shouldn't say so few people, but our vaccination rate is going down. Remember, we were the pride of the country. We were number one for a long time. Governor Justice making appearances on Meet the Press and Face the Nation and all of the big networks talking about what did West Virginia do and how have we done so well with our vaccinations. And now we're down in the lower part of vaccinations because I guess the low-hanging fruit, everybody who wanted a vaccine has gotten it, and now people who don't want it are not getting it. So they're trying to come up with ways to encourage people to get the vaccines. So they're going to be giving, and it isn't interesting, Vicky, by the way, it was right during the basketball tournaments that the COVID kind of came to the forefront. The basketball tournament was stopped in the middle, remember?
Yeah, it was March 10th or March 11th, whatever that Thursday was, and it could have caused quite a stir had someone, I don't know who it was, and I don't know if they ever found out who it did, but somebody finally got to the governor because if you
just to stop it in the middle of a game.
It was at halftime. It was the timing, though. I will say this: the timing. That was the last game of the morning session. Yeah. So they would have had probably about a couple-hour break until the evening session would have started, but he wanted to do it right at halftime of the game. It's like, Governor, they've got one more half. Let them finish. You've got a break in between before the evening session. Just get the morning session over and then do it, But yeah, whoever got to.
I'm a big believer that COVID's a serious problem, and it was in the beginning. But it wasn't like there were Mongolian horrors coming to, with maces to take over the Civic Center. It wasn't like, my God, get out, the COVID's coming. You could wait till after the game.
I mean, and they probably would have had about a 3-4 hour break in between. So, it wasn't like they weren't going to have enough time to clean the arena before the evening session.
So Dr. Young from the Kanawha County Health Department says last year it wasn't safe to have the event. Plus, we didn't have, of course, a vaccine. At that time, the tournament was the first step in closing down pretty much everything in the state. This year, as we have the vaccine and more people have gotten it, but now fewer and fewer are getting it, they're going to offer vaccines at the basketball tournament. She says, I don't anticipate thousands of people, but if we get a few hundred over the course of the tournament, that still moves us forward, and there'll be a few less people that are vulnerable to COVID. So, again, it's only been, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, Biffy? People were ready to storm the castle because you couldn't get a vaccine, right? How did you get a vaccine, Howard? What's wrong with you? There's something, you cheated somehow. Everybody was just up in arms about it. Now we got so many, we're like going, vaccines, yeah? Vaccines? Need a vaccine? Hey, you want a vaccine? We got vaccines. We're getting them everywhere.
It's kind of like the commercial with the guy selling the teddy bears out of his hot dog truck.
Yeah, the wet teddy bears.
The wet teddy bears, yes, out of the hot dog truck. That's what it's like.
Yeah, all three of the vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, and now J&J, Johnson & Johnson is back in the mix as well. They will be available at the basketball tournament. So if you have not gotten your vaccine, you go to the tournament, take some time out and go get a vaccine. No appointments will be necessary. Of course, in West Virginia, anyone over the age of 16 can get a vaccine. So that's during the girls' tournament this week, and then the boys' tournament next week. You'll be able to get a vaccine at the at the tournament. And let me double check this. I think I'm right. I think anybody. I don't think you have to be a West Virginia resident even. I thought I saw that. I could be wrong about that, so don't hold me to that. Meanwhile, Governor Justice thinks maybe a savings bond will encourage people to get the vaccine. So young people will get a $100 savings bond if they go get the vaccine. The governor announced that yesterday during one of his traditional COVID press conferences. Anybody between the age of 16 and 35 who gets a COVID vaccine will get a $100 savings bond. I don't know, Biffy, if people aren't going to get the vaccine. I mean, I think by now the people who aren't getting it are not getting it because they're making a decision not to get it. They're concerned about it. They think the long-term effects are bad, or they're anti-vaxxers, or they think Bill Gates is putting a microchip in their arm or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I have no problem with this, but I don't know that giving people a $100 savings bond is really going to encourage anybody to go get a vaccine. I mean, do you?
No, I mean, you look at the age, I think it's like 16 to 35 is what you have to be. So, yeah, most people have already made up their mind, and you're not going to change them one way or the other. I mean, they're pretty set in I'm either going to get it or I'm not going to get it. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Either at this stage of the game, people who want to get a vaccine, and even those who might be just sort of were too lazy to make the phone calls, to schedule the appointments. I mean, I'm not kidding. Literally, it's almost like, now don't anybody get upset with me. I'm just sort of making it now. It's almost like a drug dealer on a street corner, you know? We got vaccines. You need vaccines? We got vaccines. I mean, they're just, so it's like, you don't have to do it. For God's sake, go watch a basketball game and get your, Biffy, what's the lemonade you get? Zool. Get your Zools and get a vaccine. I mean, so it's not like it's hard to get. So I think at this point, people aren't getting it, have made a decision not to get it. And I think we've got to work on that. And I think we've got to convince people that the long-term effects really are not anything to worry about. I get really upset. I've been reading a lot of social media, and people were talking about, the side effects. Oh, I was so sick for a day. For God's sake, get sick for a day. If you have a day side effect, get sick for a day. I could hardly move all day. I'm not going to, it's terrible. I wish I hadn't got it. Would you rather be in an iron lung in the hospital? I mean, I don't get it. But again, I think at this stage of the game, we've got to convince people intellectually it's the right thing to do. I don't think you can bribe them. Maybe some. Maybe that'll move some people off. And again, I don't have a problem with it. I'm not complaining about it. But I don't think it's going to move too many people forward.
If it does,
by the way, if you have an Apple iPhone, good news is coming. As of yesterday, the new iOS system is available, 14.54, something like that. And one of the biggest changes is they've now come up with a way for you to use your Face ID to unlock your iPhone even while wearing a mask. If you use your Face ID, and I do on everything on my iPhone, and you're out with a mask on, you have to look around, make sure nobody's watching, then pull the mask down real quick and let it look at your face. So, new iOS system coming out tomorrow. Came out yesterday, actually. Will allow you to unlock your phone even through the mask. All right, that's some COVID news. We will talk to Chuck Collins about the wealth defense industry coming up next hour here on the Watchdog Morning Show, where it's 9 o'clock and 60 degrees.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
The ABC News is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
Biffy, Chuck Collins, 910. Let me know when he's on the line. I'm going to make a quick pit stop, and then I'll be back in a couple of minutes. All right.